Hello, my lovely stitchy friends. How are you all doing? This is Mieke, Darling Bluebell, on Sunday, July 26th. It is a beautiful, summery, sunny Sunday out here in the Netherlands. I have the house to myself, so I figured it was high time to do another much overdue Flosstube update. I have Milla, the dog, running around here. I hope she will keep quiet. I've given her, a tasty snack to keep her busy. So if you hear something in the background, that's probably gonna be her. How are you all doing? It's been quite a while since we last spoke. I hope that despite world events, you find yourselves and your loved ones healthy and well. Here things are going okay. The family is still healthy. I'm healthy. I may sound a little bit nasal. Don't worry, that is hay fever. I always get hay fever in the end of spring and beginning of summer. That's Miller. And it is, by the way, a lot of fun to have hay fever in these corona times. If I sneeze or sniff just once, people will look at me like I need to be in containment. But okay. Apart from the hay fever, I am doing fine. I have a lot to tell you and to show you today. We are first going to go into the stitching updates. There is, of course, another big bunch of Heaven and Earth Designs progress to show you. There is Stitch Mania to update you on. And there is a very special birthday stitch along coming up starting on August 1st. And that is going to be another new Heaven and Earth Designs start. I'm going to show you all of that. So in a minute, I'm going to move to the table and I'm going to, have my whips and my projects lined up there. And then I'm going to come back here. I'm sitting at the kitchen table here. And it is high time that we do a life update. For the past two videos, I promised you that at some point I would share a year worth of life updates, because the last time that we properly spoke about that was July of last year. And I figured that now is the time. So grab yourself a beverage, grab yourself some stitching, and let's have a fun visit with each other. We start off in proper Mieke fashion with a lot of blue. This is Heaven and Earth Designs Peacock Plumage by Sue Taylor. And this was my mania start together with Jemima and Lydia. I'm linking everybody that I talk about down below as usual. We hashtag this hashtag Peacock Mania. I started in the top left corner and Jemima and Lydia started in the top right corner. There is a max color version for this, which I'm very happy that I did not buy, because this is the regular version, and boy, the confetti. I managed to finish the first page. Look at that being colorful. As always, or I should say as usual, I'm stitching this on my trusted Davosa, which is an 18 count even weave by Zweigart. This is in the colorway Ecru. I always get asked, Mieke, where do you get Davosa? I buy it from a Dutch stitching shop called Hardanger.nl. I'm linking it down below. I don't know where you can get this outside of the Netherlands, but I bet that big shops like 123 Stitch will probably have it. I love stitching on Davosa. The coverage on 18 count is of course fabulous, and it is so much softer on the hands than Ada. Now, I'm gonna try and zoom in and show you the colors that are in here. Like I said, this is a regular version, so it has 90 colors, and almost all these 90 appear on the first page already. This is one of those charts that is affected by the DMC 0809 issue that Heaven and Earth is dealing with at the moment. I have gotten a replacement chart for that already, and it is just a couple of stitches on the first page that I need to replace. Otherwise, no problem. I have to say that I stopped stitching on this when I finished the first page. And that is probably because this is so busy and I need my stitching time at the moment to be more relaxed. I absolutely love this piece and I will get back to it because, I mean, hey, look at all that blue. But for now, this is going to go in the drawer and I'm going to focus my time on a couple of other hates. I told you in my previous video when I was talking about my mania plans, who knows what mania will bring. And in retrospect, I was quite right. I seriously think that designers are getting smarter and smarter by the year. Because during the month of May, 2 of my favorite designers released pieces that I absolutely had to start immediately. One of them being my favorite piece of art by Vincent van Gogh, Almond Blossom Blue. Hade released this towards the end of May, and I jumped on it immediately. I have the Riolis kit for exactly the same artwork, but truth be told, when Hade charged this is so much more detailed and I immediately got it and I started it right away somewhere in the later days of May. And I finished the first page of that as well. There you go, that's my start on the top left corner. There is, if I'm not mistaken, over 30,000 stitches in this of turquoise blue. And these are all the extra skeins of 3844, 3845 and 3846 that this piece requires. Oh. I've been wanting to have this piece hanging above my blue sofa for, well, as long as I have the sofa. You see this artwork quite often as a print in gift shops, and I always hoped that Hade would chart it at some point, and now they have, and this is definitely one of the focus Heaven and Earth designs for me in the coming time. So, Vincent van Gogh, Almond Blossom Blue, and of course also stitched on 18 count Davosa. The other designer that released a beautiful, I have to have this design during Mania, is Northern Expressions New York. This is Tapestry in Teal. And when Nicole released this, I just felt my jaw drop to the floor. This is gorgeous. She has stitched it in 5 shades of teal colored DMCs. This is, of course, a computer image, so it will not show up properly, but there is 3808, 3809, 38010, that range in it. And she provided a couple of options to stitch this chart in your own colors, purples, reds, blues. And when I saw this, and I was, high on my turquoise shades of the Vincent van Gogh piece, I decided this is going to be Tapestry in turquoise for me. And I started it. Here is what I got done so far. It shows up a bit dark. It shows up more electric blue than turquoise. But this should look like DMC 3844. I'm going to zoom out. Let's see if it will change a bit. Nah, not really. For some reason, phone cameras have trouble with bright blues. Either way, it is gorgeous. The needle minders are by Lydia Lovely Stitches, linking her Etsy shop down below. I've started in the center and I'm working my way to the left to see if I can get all 5 colors in. So that is this bit. Believe it or not, I am blending in this whip. Let me show you the colors. The blue in the center, that one, is Miss Uceda's number 56, which is basically DMC 3844. Again, it shows up more like 995, but it is more turquoise. The second color, the second darkest, is a blend. 3812 combined with 3845. And that mixes into this. I was searching for a, focus please. I was searching for a nice dark green blue color that still had a hint of turquoise in it. Like DMC 3808, but a bit more blue, if that makes sense. And when I found these two, I thought that is a good combination. The third color is DMC 3846. The fourth is a color in cotton. This is Caribbean, which you may remember as a thread that I also use for an ink circles piece of mine, Woodland Vines. And this is, Caribbean is basically 3845 and 959, maybe 958. It is a beautiful, beautiful blend that just mixes the transition from greens to blue in perfectly. And then lastly, this very light color that you see here is also the lightest color on the pattern. And it being so light gives a beautiful lacy effect. So I'm stitching that in DMC 964. I have its slightly darker cousin 959 standing by in case it falls back against the fabric, but I think 964 will do just nice. The fabric, by the way, is a favorite of mine, 32 count vintage Marma Murano. And let me tell you, this piece requires a full yard of fabric on 32 count. There are 739 stitches in height in this piece. So it's 739 tall. This thing is a real tapestry. It's not just some, dainty little thing that you can finish in a year. This is a biggie. A big, 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 big biggie. But I love it. And I'm gonna enjoy working on that. Next up is a whip that is, I think safe to say, my absolute favorite Heaven and Earth designs ever. Astray by Rachel Anderson. Otherwise known as #Rachel Salderson, together with Katrina, who is stitching Rachel Anderson's Mystique. Katrina, I'm sending you a big hug, by the way. I hope you're okay and I miss seeing your posts. I haven't shown you the most recent update on Astray, now that I'm thinking of it, because I finished a page yesterday evening and I haven't shown that on Instagram yet. Ooh, so here we go. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. Yoo-hoo! That is the 4th page finished. It's a bit crinkly in the corners and you see the Q-snap marks a little here. That will disappear when I give it a proper iron. I'll show my hand. I'll put my hand next to it, by the way, for reference. These are pages 1 and 2 and 8 and 9, I think. I'm not entirely sure. This is the top left of the design. And as you can see here, on this page corner, we are slowly but surely moving into her hair. Here. Come on, focus. Yes, here. Oh, I love her. I love her. I love her. Like I showed you last time, there is Petite Treasure braid in here, which is all throughout the light bits of the wings. I love this girl so freaking much. She is so much fun to stitch on. There is just the right mix between background stitching and actually seeing something show up. And I love how the wings are so lacy and half transparent. Yeah, she's absolutely my favorite whip and my favorite hate ever up till now. She is, I think I should mention that, she is stitched in a combination of the regular colors version and the max color version. The background, the purple background, is the regular color version, and everything that is inside the circle and Astray herself is going to be the max color version. I did a whole explanation of that in my previous video if you want to see that. So, should you want to stitch her, be aware this is neither the regular nor the max color version. It is a combination of both. I said last time that I had never done that before and that I was not sure whether, I would like it or whether I would call myself an utter idiot a couple of months further down the line. That moment has yet to come, if it ever comes. I love this. Absolutely love this. Next up is something very, 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 very different. This is my first FFO of 2020. And I wouldn't be surprised if it is the only FFO for the year, but who cares? This is a beautiful baby pattern or baby cross stitch pattern that I bought from Etsy. The designer's name that is noted down there is something that I'm not even going to attempt at pronouncing. And it's also not the name of her Etsy shop, so I will link her down below. This is a little baby elephant silhouetted in its mother that I stitched as a gift for the firstborn, a baby boy of one of our dancing friends. I altered the colors to reflect the colors of the baby room, and I put a little bit of blue in, of course, to make sure that, it had a touch of me. I framed it myself. I gifted it to her a couple of weeks ago. Both she and the baby are fine. He is a beautiful, handsome boy. And I will put in a couple of pictures of that piece here. Next up, we come to something very different again. A new to me designer that is already beloved by a lot of stitchers, Caroline Manning Designs. I found her through a comment that I got on one of my Instagram posts a while back. Oh geez, it has escaped me who it was. But anyway, she mentioned Caroline Manning in one of the comments that she made on my post. So I looked up her website and I was like, what? What is this? Why have I never seen this before? And back in the day, she had already converted to solely PDF versions of her patterns because of the whole Corona situation. And as you can see, I took that opportunity. And after playing around with the patterns that I got the idea of making a triptych out of 3 of them to hang it in my bedroom. The first up is the very well-known Northern Lights, the Shooting Star collection. This is a pattern that is pretty popular at the moment, and I love seeing updates of it. And number 2 and 3 are pretty new releases. The second one is Moonstone. Look at that. Oh. And number 3, my favorite, Turquoise. I mean, that is just me and my bedroom colors, and as well Sasha. Hi Sasha. I've started on Northern Lights. I've done a little bit on Moonstone, and I have yet to start Turquoise. But I see these 3 like hanging like this up on the bedroom wall next to each other. They are different, but they are similar, of course, in style, and there are some colors that overlap. So I think it will make a lovely, lovely trio. Here's what I got done on Northern Lights. Since they are full coverage pieces, I didn't want to, spend money on fancy fabric. So, can you guess what this is? Yes, 18 count Davosa. And here is a very, very small start on Moonstone. I don't have all the threads for it, so I just stitched what I had. And turquoise is also put in a Q-snap and ready to go. I just need to start it. Then, finally, another new upcoming start. That is going to be another Heaven and Earth design. This beautiful lady. This is the gorgeous Aquarius artwork by Pat Brennan. The max color version, 181 colors. This is a piece that, believe it or not, I want to hang in my bathroom. I mean, if I ever get to the point where I can hang it up, because it is enormous, almost 800 stitches tall and 625 wide. I'm going to stitch this on 20 count Balana even weave by Swigart because of all the black and all the dark green colors that are in her, and I don't want to, see the fabric coming through. But I somehow see her before me on the wall when I enter the bathroom, and yeah, I mean, she is a water lady. She is Aquarius. This piece is going to get started on August 1, or August 1st, I should say, for a very special birthday stitch along. It is going to be the birthday month of our stitching friend Dunja, and her, Denise and Annerique came up with a Heaven and Earth Designs stitch along, specifically a pattern that features the beautiful, gorgeous, awesome, crazy, wonderful Benedict Cumberbatch. And I figured that this pattern, although not the same, it has very similar colors. And yeah, I'm gonna join in. I remember that Dunja at some point a couple of weeks ago put the hashtag for that stitch along on Instagram, and she tagged me, Mika, I'm looking at you. What's a girl gonna do? I mean, whoever needs, what's a girl gonna do, right? There is already a hashtag for this stitch along. It is hashtag Tea with Nice Company Sell. And the T is for the pattern that Dunja is starting because it features Benedict Cumberbatch drinking a cup of tea. And I'm going to join in with, well, not exactly tea, but water. I think there are quite some similarities. So that is ready to go. I have fabric for it. I have most of the threads for it. And I have decided to start in the top, bottom left corner, because the bottom row has a lot of black and dark colors. And in her skin, especially in her shoulder, is a lot of DMC 09, which is currently being recharted by Hade. So I figured if I get this out of the way first, because I don't like black stitching, go figure, with all that hair. If I get this out of the way first, then I can slowly, bit by bit, work my way upwards to the interesting parts. And by the time I ever, in a million years, arrive at her skin, Hade will have probably recharted this piece and it will be in my email. So, that is all the stitching updates that I have to show you. I am now going to take a drink, gonna go back to the kitchen table, and we will get the story going on my life updates. That was the stitching bit of this video. I hope you enjoyed that. And now let's move into what I think is going to be the longer portion of this video, the long overdue life update. It's been a year, July last year, since I last told you about, personal life stuff. And a lot has happened since then. I told you little bits and pieces in my previous 2 videos. And I had promised you that I would, catch you up on everything that had happened once I was feeling ready for that. And I think now is the time. It's funny, you already know how long this is going to take. You have seen the timestamp. I have no idea. I've made notes that should probably tell you enough. I normally don't make notes. This might very well become a Flosstube movie. I don't know. I have no idea. So if you are out of coffee, tea, juice, water, go grab yourself another drink, keep on stitching, and then it is story time, as Mev would say. I think I am going to start with a quick recap of the events that led up to last year. Since my last video especially, I've seen quite an uptick in subscribers. By the way, hi and welcome. I hope you are enjoying this video as much as the last one. For my, lovely, faithful, returning friends, it has been, like I said, a year. July of last year was the last time that I updated you on personal things. So, yeah, let's do a quick recap and then we will move into the events that followed. I think it is wise that I put a trigger warning in place here. If you've been following my channel for a lot longer, you know that this next part is going to be about my mental health journey. I'm going to talk about things like depression, anxiety issues, panic attacks, and I fully understand that there are some people who are not comfortable with that, or who just, don't want to hear about that while they're stitching. If that is you, like I said, I fully understand. I hope that you've enjoyed the stitching part of this video and that you will be back next time for more stitching. But for those of you who want to know how I've been, yeah, here we go, I think. So, quick recap first. In September 2018, so almost 2 years ago now, I got diagnosed with a pretty severe burnout. That burnout had a lead up of about 2 years. And in the months that followed that diagnosis, big parts of my life came crashing down. My physical health, my mental health especially, my work, my love life, my housing situation. A lot of things changed, a lot of things came tumbling down. And I decided at some point to share that story here on Flosstube. Firstly, because it still is helpful for me to, to put this in a story sort of format. It helps me to process things. It helps me to gather my thoughts. And, being Dutch, English is not my native language. And thinking about these things in a different language is somehow, I find it helpful for me. That's the first reason. And secondly, after the first time I shared these personal things, there were so many of you who commented, "Thank you for sharing. I recognize myself in your story," or "Thank you for whatever." And I have since learned that there are a lot of people suffering from anxiety issues in our stitching community. So, yeah, maybe this new update will also help somebody. I don't know. I hope so. So that's why I've been sharing a lot of that here on Flosstube. And in July last year, I told you at length about the new apartment that I had bought and how immensely happy I was with that. How I was going to move in September and how I hoped to be back on Flosstube towards the end of October or the beginning of November. And then I disappeared. I came back not in October, but in February. And by then I stayed behind the camera because I was feeling unwell. So that was quite, a change from what I had hoped that the second half of last year would become. And I think if I'm going to tell this story right, I need to open up about something that I find a bit scary to open up about. But I think, in the interest of full disclosure and getting the stigma of mental health, I think it is good for me to tell you everything that I was diagnosed with back then. I've told you about the anemia on the physical side of things. I've told you about the burnout and how I started, following therapy sessions for that. But I left out 2 other diagnoses back then. The first one being depression. That's probably not a big surprise. The other one being that I was diagnosed with a panic disorder. And that is the one thing that I have been super scary about opening up about. But I think it is good to finally share bits and pieces about that, because it has been basically the boss of me for a couple of years. Like other anxiety disorders, a panic disorder originates in trauma. There has been an event or series of events in your life that have been traumatic experiences for you personally. And we are not talking about big traumatic things here like war or famine or abuse or an earthquake, flooding, whatever. They can be very small things that somehow become traumatic for you. Behind trauma is one of our human base emotions, fear. I've talked about fear and about danger avoidance in previous videos if you want to look that up. Fear is such a driving force in our lives, and sometimes that is put to good use, but we also as humanity suffer from a lot of irrational fear. And panic disorder is a pretty extreme manifestation of that. If I try to put it in an image, it would sort of look like this, I think. Something happens in your life, an experience, an event, and your brain puts that memory in a big, huge red box inside your brain. There is a big alarm signal above that box. There is a huge caps lock label, danger, on the side. And that box gets a place in your head. You're not aware of that. It happens. It is the way that your brain chooses to deal with the event that has occurred. The next time you encounter yourself in the same or a similar situation, that box blows open. That alarm signal starts blaring, and your brain tells your body that you are pretty much in mortal danger. Whether you are or not is not even the case. That box gets triggered, that memory gets triggered, your brain explodes, and it launches your body into the basic fight, flight, fright, freeze impulse, and you get launched into a panic attack. In my experience, panic attacks can take a couple of seconds unto a couple of minutes, unto half an hour, and the longer they last, the dizzier you get until you reach a point where you think, oh dear, I'm gonna pass out. Passing out has never truly happened to me, thank God, but I've been close to a couple of times. The tricky thing with panic disorders is that the memory that is stored inside that big red box doesn't have to be dangerous at all. And that is why for a lot of people, including me myself, it is very difficult to open up about it because you feel childish or ashamed, or you feel like people will judge you if you tell them what you are afraid of. You will very often find that the triggers that somebody responds to with a panic attack are not things that you have to react to in that way, but it just happens. For instance, in my case, without going into too much detail, my triggers are auditive. I respond to certain sounds. If I look at those sounds from a rational point of view, there's no need for me to be afraid of them. They can't attack me. They can't kill me. They're not loud enough to damage my hearing. I don't have to enter into panic. I don't have to respond like I am in mortal danger. But my panic disorder still does that for me. And for the last 3 years, that big red box inside my brain had pretty much become the boss of me. If you let it grow, it will expand until it sort of takes over. And that is what I've been working on in therapy. I've told you about EMDR in one of my previous videos, that relatively new therapy, trauma therapy. We are still continuing with that. And I am thankfully still following up with my therapist, and that's gonna last until at least the end of this year. But that has been one of the main things that caused my burnout and subsequently depression. At this point, I would like to say, if you recognize your story and mine, please get help. You don't have to do this alone. I recognize that it is difficult to talk about. I mean, I find it difficult to put this on video, trust me. And there are still quite some people in my personal life who don't know about this. My family knows it, my close friends know it. But like, for instance, my colleagues at work, they have no idea that I deal with a mental disorder. They don't have to. But, you know, it makes you very vulnerable, and it is so personal and sometimes so scary to talk about. But if you recognize this, go get yourself somebody to talk to, a professional who can help you. This is something that you don't have to do alone. And like I said, if left unchecked, your big red box will expand and expand until it becomes the boss of you. In the 3 years when it was the boss of me, those have been the unhappiest years of my life. And I still struggle with it. It is a process of trial and error. I am nowhere near done with it. But bit by bit, I am learning to get a grip on that box. And bit by bit, I see that it shrinks down. And that goes up and down, of course, depending on how I sleep, depending on what happens in a day. But I do see now, at the point where I am now, that it doesn't drive every single life choice I make anymore. And that leads into, what the hell happened to you, Mika, after July of last year? Now I need to take a sip. In July of last year, I had a huge big smile on my face in my YouTube video where I told you about how I had managed to buy myself a new house and how insanely happy I was about the place, how it had everything that I wanted. 3 bedrooms, so there would be a proper craft room, a huge big balcony. I was so happy with it. I was going to get the key in September. We would renovate the place, painting, flooring, for about 5-6 weeks. And I had hoped to be back on Flosstube in early November to show you a tour of the craft room. And that never happened. Then I came back in February of this year, staying behind camera, instead showing you images of the sleeping dogs and telling you that everything had gone very differently from what I had hoped and dreamed. And that my panic attacks had come back in full force, that I was not well, and that I didn't feel well enough to appear in front of the camera. Looking back on things from where I'm sitting now, I have come to the conclusion that I bought my new apartment for the wrong reasons. My happiness with my choice back then was absolutely genuine. There was nothing unreal or fake or whatever about it. But in hindsight, I made that choice too quickly. It was too early on in my panic disorder therapy. I had too much still to learn before I was really able to make a big life choice like that. And there were two flaws in my reasoning. And I put that word between brackets because they are not technically flaws. And I will not label them mistakes because they weren't. I will get back to that after I tell you about the events. I wanted to buy a new house back in the day for a couple of reasons. The first one was that I wanted to have a bit more space. The second one was that I had lived in my old apartment for 15 years. I had seen every nook and corner of it. I wanted something new. I wanted an upgrade, let's say. And thirdly, I was longing to leave the last few difficult years behind me. I literally and figuratively wanted to shut the door and, give myself a new start, a new chapter in a different house. A house that would be all mine, where there would be no memories of the fights and tears surrounding my relationship, the panic attacks that I had suffered, me getting sick and all the stress at work. I wanted to leave that all behind me. And the flaw in my reasoning was that I was convinced that I could leave that behind me in my old house. When I bought that place, I had been going to therapy for 5 months. I had learned a lot already. We had done a couple of EMDR sessions that worked wonders for my brain. I thought I was ready. In hindsight, I wasn't. As much as I believed that my panic attacks didn't play a role in choosing the house that I did, they did play a role. That big red box in my brain pointed me in a direction that was not the right choice for me. I was convinced that I could leave. No, I'm saying that wrong. I had come to believe that my panic attacks existed outside of me. Like I said earlier, my triggers have to do with sound. And those sounds exist outside of me. And so I figured if I, learn enough through therapy, if I can, get rid of my old place, I have a symbolic moment where I can leave the panic attacks behind me because the triggers exist outside of me. And that is where I made a big mistake. And again, mistake. I just said that I wouldn't call them mistakes. Naughty me. That's where there was a flaw in my reasoning. Because the panic attack exists here. The big red box lives inside my brain, not outside of it. Yes, the big red box gets triggered by things that happen outside of my body, but the box lives inside here. And so while I had hoped and dreamed of moving into this new place and not suffer any more panic attacks, you can probably already guess what happened. On the third day that I had the key, which was also my birthday, I entered the house, and within 30 seconds, bam, major panic attack. I did not really have a nice birthday, to say the least. I tried to push it away. Friends had made a big surprise for me, so I tried to focus on that. I took my parents and my brother out for dinner in a very nice place, so I tried to focus on that. But there was this nasty feeling whirling in my belly where I was like, oh, damn. I thought I was done with this. I thought I was done with it, and look at me now. I have the key 3 days and the panic is back. I persevered, trying to push the panic away, which is, by the way, not the way to deal with it, but it's a very human response. We continued the renovation for 6 weeks in total. And, everybody who's moved house, hi Letitia, I love your craft room. Everybody who has moved house knows how stressful it is. How much work you have to do, how, it puts a strain on your body and just sleep stress. So it shouldn't have been a surprise to me that I was vulnerable to getting a new panic attack. And sure enough, after 6 weeks of renovating, I was getting ready to move in. The paintwork was done. My beautiful new sofa had arrived, bright blue. My beautiful new bed had arrived. I was ready. I was gonna move in on Saturday and Sunday. And 3 days in a row, I had panic attack after panic attack after panic attack when I was in the house. I came back home here to my parents' place Saturday crying. And my mother said, take some time. You are not in a state of mind now to move in. Give yourself a week, get some rest. You have put so many hours in. This is not the kind of work that you normally do. Give yourself some time and move in later. And that moving in has basically never happened. It is now July. In the last months, I have never, ever lived in my beautiful place. I've not spent the night there. I've not taken a shower there. I've not even cooked a meal there. I've tried for week after week after week to visit the place, to collect the mail, to do something concrete, to, water the plants. Sometimes I would be alone, sometimes I would be with friends or family. And every time I closed the door, bam, or almost every time I closed the door, bam, panic attack. I remember that I went there with Patricia at some point in the autumn. We met downstairs at the entrance of the building. We took the elevator upstairs. We entered into the kitchen and I was so tensed that I cried my eyes out, and she hugged me, and that is basically the summary of the last months. To say I am disappointed in myself is an understatement. To say that I felt ashamed and stupid and a fool and a mistake and a failure is an understatement. By the time December rolled around, I was so down and so just not myself that both my mother and my brother told me, you need to go see the doctor because this is reaching a point where you need some medication. So I went. The doctor prescribed some basic antidepressants to me. I've been taking them since, and they're working for me. It's not the solution, of course, but they stabilize me a little bit. The pills took about 5 weeks to settle in, to properly start working without all the disadvantages. And all that time I kept visiting my place at least once a week. I kept on trying and I kept on trying. But somewhere during the winter, I realized this is not going to work. I stood at some point in front of the big living room window overlooking the city of Veenendaal, and I caught myself thinking, is this what I have given up Ede for? Is this what I have given up my old neighborhood for? And that made something in my mind click. And in the weeks following that, I realized that I had made another flaw. There was another flaw, I should say, in my reasoning. I had compromised on my priorities. I had let myself get swept up in the craze of the housing market. And that was my second mistake. Again, not a mistake. We'll get back to that. The housing market here has been going absolutely nuts over the last 5 years or so. Housing prices are rising and rising. Interest rates are still very low. And it has gotten to a point where if you are single, or if you have a new type of student loan, or if you are a starter on the housing market, it is virtually impossible for you to buy a place. I was lucky enough that I had a place to sell. But if I would start right now, it's not possible. On top of that, the commercial renting prices have also gone through the roof. So the housing market is tight, intense. It is quite common that houses get sold way above the price that the owners are asking. It is common that houses get sold within a day, like happened to my old place. And I knew that when I entered the housing market. I knew that, and I had told myself, you will not get swept up in that craze. You will take your time. You will write down your priorities. You will take your time. And in the end, I realized that I still had compromised on one of the most important things on my priorities list, which was the city that I lived in. I told you that I moved to Veenendaal, which is the city where I was born, which is where my parents live and my brother lives and my grandma on mother's side. Maternal grandma, I think the term is. And that I came from Ede, the neighbor city, after having lived there for 15 years. Ede is the city where I, became my own woman, to say. That's where I built my own life. That's where I made my friends. That's where I had the gym 2 minutes away, a cinema in walking distance. I have come to love Ede a lot. I felt at home there. I felt especially at home in the neighborhood where I lived. And when I made the list of, okay, what do I want to see in a new place, Ede was definitely in the top 5. And somehow I compromised on that. When I visited the place that I bought in Veenendaal, I gave myself a whopping 2 hours to consider what I was buying. And in hindsight, that was insane. That was insane. I was the second of 3rd visitors that Wednesday afternoon. I saw the place from 2 to about 2:45. And the broker was a very friendly person, but they definitely, used the tricks that brokers do. If you want this place, you need to be quick. We have more visitors coming up in the next couple of days, blah, 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 blah. I was not prepared to have been impressed by the apartment. I thought it was just, like I said back then, a trial visit, to prepare myself for the real thing. And then I liked it. And I told you that whole story about how I came outside again flabbergasted, and how I looked at my mom, who had accompanied me, and said to her, I think this is the place. What do I do now? What do I do now? I went back home, and not even 2 hours later, before 5 o'clock that evening, I called the broker's office and I put an opening bid in. Back in the day, I convinced myself that I was acting on a good impulse. Do you know that whole story about Mika 2.0 that I told you back in the day? And that Mika 2.0 was learning bit by bit to, act from her gut and to listen to her feeling. I thought that's what I was doing. But in reality, I was letting the craze and the push of the housing market get to me. And I figured I need to be quick, otherwise this place is going to be sold. If I had given myself a bit more time, an evening or a day at least, I would have sat down and I would have said to myself, okay, Mika, what will this move mean to you? What will it mean to you to leave Ada, a city that you love, a city where you can walk to the cinema, where you can, see your friends and your gym in literally 3 minutes? What does it mean for you to move away from that? To move to a city that is, neighboring to Ada? I mean, it's still close, but every time you want to visit your friends, every time you want to go to the gym, you have to take the highway. What does it mean for you that once you go back to work, you need to drive home over the highway, quickly change, quickly eat something, then drive back over the highway in traffic jam time to go to the gym on time for your dance classes? Those things may seem minor, but they are a major part of my life. Did I give myself time to think about that? No, I didn't. I should also have, thought to myself, okay, what does it mean to move to a neighborhood that is so different from the one where you live? My old house was in this beautiful 90s, spacious green neighborhood. Lots of water, lots of trees, lots of light, beautiful houses, decent people. And the neighborhood that I moved to was very, very different. I knew that up front because I have grown up in Veenendaal. I knew that I was moving to a 70s area with lots more concrete, lots less green, no water, whereas I love water. And I figured, oh well, I don't care. I'm gonna be on the top floor of a 7-story building. I will have a view for miles and miles and miles. I don't care what the neighborhood looks like on ground level. I should have considered that. I should have stuck to my priorities list, and I should not have let the craze and the push get to me. But I did let it get to me. And so I made the choice to buy this house in a mere 2 hours. And that is how we arrive here. I went back and forth during the winter months. And a lot of that time was spent on punishing myself. Like I just said, Mika, you have failed again. Mika, you are still stuck with your 1.0 version. I blamed and shamed myself, which is not the way to go, by the way, which is not the way to go. It is understandable, it is human, but it is not the way to go. And the changing moment, I think, came in the weekend of Easter. So somewhere in April. My mom had asked my dad to pick up some tools that were still in my house that she needed for their house. And I said, hey, you know what? Why don't my dad and I go together? Why don't we go pick those tools up together and we try to have a cup of coffee with the two of us in my place? Let's see if I can manage that. So I thought, I'm being brave. I'm not avoiding, I am facing the thing, that I'm afraid of. Let's do this. So I felt good and I felt strong and I felt brave, and we drove to my place, which is about 10 minutes from here. We entered the building, we entered my house. I walked onto the balcony where the tools were, and I was standing on the balcony, and it got to me again. So I took a breath, and another, and another. And I realized that my hands were starting to shake, that my heart rate was going up. And in the meantime, I could see that my dad was sitting down on my beautiful blue sofa. He was checking his phone. He was completely at ease. While I, at the same time, was, feeling the beginnings of another panic attack. I went inside, or I picked up the tools. I went inside. I saw my dad looking at me like, what is happening happening here? My dad had up until then never seen me having a panic attack. My mother and my brother and some good friends had seen it. But my dad, who is a very rational human being, who doesn't really understand these things, even though he tries, he had never seen me in a panic attack. And he was looking at me with big eyes like, what is happening to you? Are you okay? And I said, we need to go. I'm sorry. I'm not going to make coffee. We need to go. Otherwise I'm going to faint on the floor here. So he stood up quickly. We gathered our stuff. We went downstairs. We drove back home. My mom was waiting for us in the kitchen. And when we walked through the front door here, she saw my face. She held out her arms to me and I cried my eyes out. And then after a while, my mom looked at me and she said, Mika, maybe it is time for you to consider that you have not made the right choice. And I agreed with her. It's funny how it took another person in my life, somebody who I look up to, my mom, somebody who is, one of the foundation elements of my life, that it took her to tell me something that I knew for months already, but that I didn't want to admit to. It's funny how we sometimes need other people to validate what we feel. And since April, things are happening. I'm not going to tell you about that right now because it's, in development and I don't want to jinx anything. But something positive is looming on the horizon. And I hope that when the next video comes around, I will be able to tell you about that. I'm so sorry to keep you hanging in suspense here. But yeah, I mean, this is already such a long story. I think I'm going to save the next chapter for the next time. There is, however, one thing I do want to share. Remember that I told you many minutes ago about how I put the word flaws and mistakes in between brackets. I do want to say something about that. In the last year, I have learned a lot about the enormous strength of the word hope. In the Bible, there is this trio of words: faith, hope, and love. And hope was for me always the odd one out. Faith, yes, absolutely. Love, yes, absolutely. But hope? Is hope really as strong as the other two? I have now experienced that yes, hope is, if there's one thing that is stronger than fear, it is definitely hope. I had a good talk about this months ago with a darling stitchy friend. You know who you are. I love you. And we talked about hope, what it means, what it does. And after months of shaming myself, blaming myself for the choice that I had made with this new house, I have now come to a point where I can forgive myself, even if there is nothing to forgive. The choice that I made last year may have been made for the wrong reasons, but it was the right choice at the time. And I should not forget that. Back in the day when I bought that place, I was still full-time on sick leave. And I was extremely afraid of going back to work because work was one of the places where my panic attacks occurred. I was so afraid of that. And seeing how I was able to buy a house, to get the mortgage arranged, to arrange buying one place and selling the current one, that gave me a boost of confidence in saying, hey, listen, if I can do this, I can go back to work. And within 2 months after buying that house, I was back at work. So, and also, if you are as down as I was, if you are in such a low place, you need something to look forward to. If you feel that your life is lying around you, shattered in tatters, you need a sense of perspective. You need something to, push and pull you forward. And for me, that was this house. I remember very distinctly that a few weeks before I saw that place, I was sitting on the couch here. It's just it's behind this wall. I was sitting on the couch here, feeling like I would never again be happy, truly. And a couple of weeks later, that place came along, and all of a sudden, it gave me energy, it gave me motivation, it gave me positivity. So even though I have not lived there for a day, and teaser, although not a surprise teaser, I am not gonna live there. We are in the process of selling the place at the moment. It has helped me to take a few very important steps. It has given me, at the time, the hope that I needed. Mila. Hey, you're ruining my punchline. Come here. Kom eens. Mila. Ja. I think Mila is trying to tell me that she is one of the elements that gave me hope, which is definitely true. I told you about Mila and how she has her own anxieties. She's a rescue dog from Greece. I see in her the anxiety issues that I deal with. And to have such a mirror is really helpful and is really teaching me a lot of things. So I think she was just begging for a little bit of credit. Anyway, that is the thing that I wanted to end this video with. The enormous value that is hope. So I have moved past blaming and shaming myself. I have a new positive outlook, and I have a new positive view of the year that is behind me. I am no longer in the illusion that the panic attacks exist outside of me. That big red box is inside my head. I will need to learn to deal with that day by day, month by month, and probably year by year. It's something that I will probably carry with me for the rest of my life. But hey, you know what? If I can ultimately learn to be the boss of it instead of it being the boss of me, then I have learned a lot, and I have grown as a human being enormously. So yeah, despite everything, and despite this whole roller coaster adventure of mental health issues, please know that at the moment I am actually doing well. Work is going really good. I am back to 3.5 days now. I just have another 8 hours to add, and then I will be back on my normal level. Dance classes have resumed. We are on a summer break now, but they have resumed. I'm doing good with the medication, and I'm just going to continue that for at least another couple of months. I sleep well, which is a bonus, and I am very looking forward to the months ahead. And I'm going to tell you all about that, hopefully, next time. So, if you're still with me, thank you so much. I feel like I rambled on and not everything was as structured as I would like it to be, but that's okay. I wish you a lovely day wherever you are in the world and whatever time you're watching this. Mila also says hi and gives you a dog hug. I hope you are okay. Please stay safe. Take good care of yourself. Love yourself. Really, truly, you're worth it. And it's not just an advertisement slogan, but you are worth it. We are all worth it. I hope you enjoy your stitching. A big hug from me, and we'll see each other next time. Ciao, my friends.